Okay, so good morning, all of my dear viewers and students. In today's session, we are going to discuss a very important topic of physiology, and the name of topic is what? Action potential in SA node. So today's session, we are going to discuss how the action potential develop in SA node. So before we are going for the discussion of the action potential develops in SA node, I would first like to discuss some general term related to these topics. So we start the topic with the meaning of what action potential. So first we try to understand what is the meaning of action potential. Now in your Viva, your teacher asks to you what is the meaning of action potential, then what you say. So the action potential means it is the change in membrane potentials due to the influx or the efflux of charge. So what you say? It is the change in membrane potentials due to the influx or the efflux of the charge. How membrane potential will change? It will change only two ways. Either there is the influx of charge or there is the efflux of charge. So if there is influx or efflux of charge will occur, that leads to change in membrane potential, and the change in membrane potential is called action potential. So basically in action potential, it is a combination of what? Influx of charge and the efflux of charge. So now the second question they ask to you, what is the meaning of depolarization? So what is the depolarization? Depolarization means the change in action potentials due to the influx of charge. Then what is the meaning of repolarization? Repolarization means the change in action potentials due to the efflux of charge. Okay, so action potential is combination of both depolarization and repolarization. In repolarization, what happens? There is the influx of charge that leads to change in membrane potentials. While in repolarization, what happens? There is efflux of charge that leads to change in membrane potentials. So if there is a change in membrane potentials due to the efflux or the influx of charge, it is called action potentials. So after a huge discussion of action potentials, now we are moved towards the next very important topics, that is resting membrane potentials. So what is the meaning of this resting membrane potentials? Resting membrane potential means when the net movement of charge is zero, we call that stage as a resting membrane potential. So a potential at which the net influx of charge is zero is called resting membrane potential. So what is the meaning of this influx of net movement of charge is zero? Net movement of charge is zero means whatever the amount of charge enter into the cell, the same amount of charge will exit out. So if same amount of charge is enters and the same amount of charge is exits out, at this condition there is no net movement of charge in any direction. So if there is no any net movement of charge in any direction, and at a potential at which this condition is achieved is called resting membrane potential. So again, what is the meaning of resting membrane potentials? Resting membrane potential means it is a potential at which the net movement of charge is zero. Net movement of charge is zero means whatever the amount charge enters, the same amount of charge is exits out. This condition is called resting membrane potential. Okay, so after the discussion of this resting membrane potential, the next topic is, next point is the threshold potential. So what is the meaning of this threshold potential? Threshold potential means a potential at which the voltage gated channels are open. The threshold potential is what? It is a potential at which the voltage gated channels are open. It may be a calcium channel, potassium channel, or the sodium channel. Any voltage gated channels open a potential known as threshold potentials. So depolarization I already mentioned to you, it is the influx of charge. Repolarization means efflux of charge, and hyperpolarization. So when there is the excessive efflux of charge will occur, that leads to they reduce the potential of cells in more negative. So if potential of cells undergoes in hyper negativity condition or more negative condition, the condition is called what's hyperpolarization. Okay, so after the discussion of these all things, now we move towards this graph, action potential graph of the SA node. So this topic is started what I mean this topic is started in Guyton with 2 points. And what is this point? First they explain about the slow potential and the fast potential. So what is the meaning of this slow potential or the fast potential? Which they describe the slow or action potential of the is it describe the slow or fast potential of the action potential of SN nodes? This slow and fast potential is not related to the action potential. This slow and fast potential is depends upon the depolarization. So when the depolarization is fast, we call it fast potential, and when the depolarization is slow, it is called slow potential. So in case of SA node and the AV nodes, the depolarization is slow. So in case of SA nodes and AV nodes, the depolarization is slow. That's why it is considered under slow potentials. While in case of the contractile myocardium, I mean atrial or the ventricles or the conducting myocardium, Purkinje fibers. So this atrium and the ventricular myocardium and the Purkinje myocardiums, here the depolarization is faster. So when the depolarization is faster, it is called fast potential, and when the depolarization is slow, it is called slow potential. Slow potential exists in case of at AV nodes and SA nodes, and the fast potential exists in case of what's myocardial tissue, I mean atrium and ventricular myocardium and the Purkinje fibers. So after the discussion of slow potential and the fast potentials, they move towards the resting membrane potentials. So according to the Guyton textbook, the resting membrane potentials of a SA node is not fixed. So why the resting membrane potential of the SA node is not fixed? This is because in case of the SA nodal cells, the membrane of SA nodal cells, they are permeable to what? Sodium ions and calcium ions. Normally the membranes are impermeable to the resting stage of sodium ions and the calcium ions. But in case of in case of SA nodal tissue, even at a resting stage, its membrane are permeable to the calcium ion and sodium ions. So this permeability of calcium ions and sodium ion is called leaky currents. They produce slow depolarization, and the current produced in this slow depolarization is called leaky currents. And the channel through which there is the movement of calcium and sodium is called funny channels. So funny sodium and calcium channels are present in case of SA nodal tissue. So due to the presence of this funny sodium and calcium channels, there is no any fixed resting membrane potential in case of the SA nodes. So in SA node, the resting membrane potential in a range of minus 55 to 60 millivolts. And why it is not fixed? Because they are present of funny sodium and calcium channel. This funny sodium and calcium, funny calcium channel is also called as leaky channels. So due to the presence of this funny calcium and sodium channels, the SA nodal cells having a self-excitability natures, and one is that they having a self-excitability natures, and also due to this they having a comparatively one more point they mention in Guyton textbook. One more point they mention that in case of the SA nodal tissue, their resting membrane potential is comparatively less negative as compared to what myocardial tissue. For example, in case of the SA nodal tissue, the resting membrane potential value is minus 50 to 60 millivolts, while in case of the contractile myocardial tissue, the resting membrane potential is at minus 90 millivolts. So the now question is arises why the resting membrane potential value is more negative in case of myocardial, I mean contractile myocardial tissue, and less negative in SA nodal tissue. This is because in case of the SA nodal tissue, there presents funny sodium channels and the funny calcium channels. So this funny sodium channels and calcium channels, there is a continuously leakage of the ions from extracellular fluid to the intracellular fluids. So this excessive ion which continuously moves from extracellular fluids to the intracellular fluids, that neutralize the negative charges present inside the cells. That's why in case of the SA nodal tissue, their resting membrane potential are relatively less negative as compared to what? Contractile myocardial tissue. So this is one more point. Again, they ask a question to you that why in case of if there is a continuous systems of entry of positive charges into the cells, then why the cell not always remain in the depolarization states? So what they tells about this question. So they explain about this question that in case of in case of depolarization states, the opening of voltage gated calcium channels, whatever the time the calcium channels are open, almost the same duration the voltage gated potassium channels is open, or voltage gated potassium channels are slightly open at more duration of time as compared to the calcium channels. So that's opening of what calcium channel is responsible for the rapid depolarization, and the opening of potassium channel that is responsible for the repolarization. So both repolarization and depolarization cancel to the each others. That's why the cell not always remain in case of polarized states. Okay, so after the discussion of all the important discussion in Guyton textbooks, now we move towards the action potential graph. So what happens at the resting membrane potential is the minus 60 millivolt in which cells? SA nodal cells. So due to the gradual influx of sodium and calcium ions, there is a slow rise. There is slow rise of membrane potentials, and this slow rise of membrane potential also we call it a slow depolarization. So as its value reach at minus 40 millivolts, as it reach its value at minus 40 millivolts, then what happens? There is the opening of calcium channels, and as there is the opening of calcium channels, there is a rapid change in membrane potential. We called it that as rapid depolarization or the phase 0. So after the rapid depolarization, phase 0, there is the closing of calcium channels, and now the opening of potassium channels. So potassium concentration are inside the cell having more concentration. So charge always move from high concentration to the low concentration. So now there is the efflux of potassium ions from inside to outside, and that this influx of potassium ion from inside to outside is called rapid repolarization or phase 3. So after this rapid repolarization, since the potassium channels are open slightly more duration as compared to the calcium channels, so that is responsible for the hyperpolarizations. After again hyperpolarization, there is the entry of calcium and sodium channels through the leak channels that again re-stabilize the resting membrane potentials, and again rapid slow depolarization phases, then again fast depolarization phase, then rapid repolarization phase, and the same things are repeated. So this all about the AC nodal action potential graphs. I hope you can understand the lecture. Okay.